July 5th Board of Supervisors meeting to order. Roll call, please.
Supervisor Carroll.
Here.
Supervisor Elias.
Presente.
Supervisor Miller.
Here.
Supervisor Valadez.
Present.
Chair Bronson. Here. Let the record show all members are present and Supervisor Miller is participating telephonically.
Okay, let's now rise for the invocation to be offered by Ayan Zeraik Ananta Wakilu. With the Pledge of Allegiance to follow, led by Supervisor Elias.
Members of Pima County Board of Supervisors, with the authority which people entrust in you as government official, you must work for the welfare, peace, and happiness of all people under your jurisdiction. To be able to achieve these qualities, once the Buddha said, rulers and government officials must embody these dharmas: generosity, morality, altruism, honesty, gentleness, self-discipline, non-anger, non-violence, forbearance, and uprightness. May these noble qualities of Dharma be upon you. With your skillful understanding, skillful thinking, skillful speech, and skillful action, may you be responsive, constructive, and productive. May all people benefit from your skillful work. May all the blessing be upon you and all people. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu.
Please join me in the pledge, please.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Madam Chair?
Supervisor Elias.
Yes, I'd like to ask for a moment of personal privilege.
Proceed.
A couple items I did want to mention to us this morning. The first one involves all the violence that we've seen over this past weekend all over the world and all the many bombings and terrorist acts that have taken place. And I just wanted all of us here at this meeting this morning to stop for a moment and let's remain seated and offer a moment of silence for those many families and their suffering that they are facing today in a world that seems to be growing increasingly violent. Thank you, Madam Chair. The second comment that I wanted to make is about the Pima County Health Department. And as the board member that sits on the Board of Health, I'm very proud to say that our Public Health Department received a national accreditation from the Public Health Accreditation Board on May 17, 2016. There's only 3 health departments here in the state of Arizona that are accredited: Yavapai, Pima County, and of course our good friends at the state of Maricopa. And we should be very proud of this. Out of nearly 3,000 health departments across the United States, there are only 134 that have this accreditation. So this shows ultimately that we're doing good work, that we are being mindful of our taxpayers and what they want to see in a public health department. And also also that the strategies that we have in place are being successful, and we're very proud of all those employees and the work they do. I know their work is going to continue to stand out nationally as they continue to offer their best to the residents of Pima County. And then, of course, I would be remiss if I didn't mention the leadership of Dr. Francisco Garcia, what he's offered to health departments since he's come. And I'm informed that if I do not also mention Jan Lesher, that I will have some kind of grief to pay for it. So thank you for your leadership as well, Ms. Lesher. Thank you, Madam Chair. Appreciate the time.
Madam Chair.
Supervisor.
Madam Chair, I'd also like to echo the supervisor and say very much appreciate Department of Health, Dr. Garcia and Jan Lesher, and especially to Richard for all the years that you've served on the Board of Health and for the great volunteers across the community. The recognition is well deserved. I'm very proud. Thank you.
Okay. Let's move now to probably the best part of the meeting, and that is pause for pause. And Jenny, our PAC outreach coordinator, is going to introduce you to Han Sullivan.
So good morning. This is Hans Solo. He came to us with that name. He has sadly been with us twice now. The first time when one of his owners died and they had to move to a smaller home and were unable to take him. He was then adopted again, and he was territorial. He's probably a Parsons or a Jack Russell Terrier, and he took ownership of their 6-year-old daughter and frightened her, so they brought him back again. But he is a really, really cool dog. Because he's a terrier, he's got a lot of energy. He's 8 years old, so he has some manners. He does know how to sit, but he would benefit from walks and playing and an active lifestyle. Probably not the best for people with small children, but with older children, he's just fine, and he loved everybody he met on our way in today. So he's a really, really good dog. He is neutered, so he can go home with you today. He's up to date on his shots and microchips. And because he's 8 years old, his adoption fee is waived. So it's just the $17 for the license. So this is Hans, and he's a really great dog. I also wanted to say, today is a really, really busy day for us because of all the fireworks yesterday. But we had an adoption special this last weekend, and from Friday through Sunday, we were able to find homes for 270 animals. So thank you. It was awesome community, and they stepped up this weekend and gave lots of the animals deserving homes. So thank you.
Madam Chair.
Supervisor Carroll, you're going to take Han home with you?
I already have a couple of terriers, so I'd love to. Ma'am, could you please talk about the redemption week that we have going on when there's no fees attached? I've read about it in the paper, but...
Yes, for this week only. If your animals got out and end up with us, they can be redeemed at no fees. Usually there's an impound fee when your animals end up with us, and this week all of those fees are waived for your animals when they come into our shelter. Now, I'm not sure if that's for unaltered. That might just be altered animals.
If they're unaltered when they get in, we do them the courtesy of altering.
Yes. And we're very happy to do that. Although we're a little backed up, you might have to wait a day or two to get in there because they're catching up on all the adoptions this week that had to be altered before they go home to their families.
Very good, thank you, Jim.
Well, a well-mannered, middle-aged dog, it's more than you can say for the District 5 supervisor. So,
Looking for a well-mannered, middle-aged family?
Please talk to folks and help us find a home for this dog. Seems like a nice little animal that could make a lot of people happy. And just think of how many people you all know here in this room. So if everybody says a word or two to people, I bet you we'll find a nice home for this dog before the end of the week, and that would be something that would make us all feel a little better. Thank you.
Okay, we have several changes to the agenda before we get to the presentation proclamations. And that is on regular agenda, page 4, item 18. It's a regional wastewater reclamation. We need to delete quarterly monitoring and add, it's a correction, and add monitoring its discharge on a semi-annual basis, not a quarterly. And then on the addendum agenda, page 2, item 7, it's a correction to the title. It should read 160 North Stone Avenue. Again, it's page 2, item 7, addendum agenda. There are no objections. We will so amend both agendas. All right, now let's then move on to item 5, presentation of the proclamation to Megan Lane, pretrial services manager, Lucas Johnson, pretrial services case manager, Michael Smith, adult probation unit supervisor of the year, Dave Kwan, adult probation senior probation officer and line officer of the year, Dina Franson, adult probation officer, adult probation administrative support specialist and employee of the year, Megan Wells, juvenile probation senior probation officer and officer of the year, Melissa Reiber, junior court senior surveillance officer and employee of the year, proclaiming the week of July 17th through the 23rd, 2016 to be pre-trial probation and community supervision week. I'll move the item. Motion and a second. Any objections? Hearing none, motion carries. Supervisor Elias will make the presentation.
Come on up, please.
The board won't do anything bad to you yet. That comes later. Come on. Around here so we can face the public in front. Thank you all for your work, and you get to hold it because you made the mistake of standing next to me. All right, everybody here? Great. Thank you all so much. You know, the work that our pretrial and probation and community supervision folks do is really important to all of us. It saves us a lot of money. It protects the public, and it also offers an insight into folks who are going into the system to be adjudicated. And so we should be very proud of the work that they do with adults and with women and with juveniles. And so this is an opportunity for us to recognize some of the hard work that they've done. And everybody's name was on that list and is in the agenda. And did y'all get those names, Chuck? Anyways, here we go with the proclamation. Whereas pretrial probation and community supervision services are essential and critical components of the Pima County justice system. And whereas pretrial probation and community services professionals uphold the law and recognize the public's right to be safe from criminal activity. And whereas those professionals in Pima County adult probation supervised 8,500 offenders in 2015. And the 300 employees of the juvenile justice system affected positive behavior change in more than 8,000 youths and their families. Let's stop there and have a round of applause for them for that work. Whereas pretrial probation and community supervision services save taxpayers many thousands of dollars, given the cost of standard probation supervision is $3.65 per offender per day, while an Arizona State Prison costs $65.04 per inmate per day, and the Pima County Detention Center costs $85.58 per detainee per day. A lot of dollar figures in that one, huh? Whereas pretrial probation and community supervision employees are trained to provide professional and effective services, referrals and guidance to help offenders become productive members of our community. And whereas these experts also provide tailored services, support, and protection for crime victims. And whereas pretrial probation and community supervision professionals work in partnership with community agencies and organizations to enhance everyone's effort to advocate for community and restorative justice. Now therefore be it resolved that the Pima County Board of Supervisors hereby proclaims the week of July 17th to July 23rd, 2016 to be pretrial probation and community services week, and encourages all Pima County residents to honor these professionals for their quality service and to recognize them for their valuable achievements. Passed and adopted this 5th day of July 2016. Please be generous in your applause. And who's going to speak for us here? We've got several speakers, I believe. Anybody up? Maybe not. Very good.
My name is David Sanders. I'm the Chief Probation Officer for the Adult Probation Department in Superior Court. I'd like to thank Supervisor Elias and all the supervisors for the support of the department. I'd like to thank the men and women of the Adult Probation Department for what they do every year to make this a better place to live. Thank you.
John Scarrow, Director of Juvenile Court Services and the Juvenile Chief Probation Officer. I'd like to thank Mr. Elias and the Board of Supervisors for recognizing us for this proclamation for Probation Week, and to recognize all of the juvenile probation, surveillance, and detention officers that work every day to make our community safer and our families successful, and particularly our Probation Officer of the Year, Megan Wells, and our Employee of the Year, Melissa Reiber, who's a surveillance officer, and our down the end, our Probation Division Director, Chris Logan. Thank you.
All right, let's do a quick picture so that, we can show up somewhere. You want us in front of the podium here? You guys want to stand in there? You can stand with me. How about you stand right here? Oh, there we go. We got everybody in now. Thank you all very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you all. All right, we're going to move on then to the next presentation proclamation. It's on the addendum. It's item 1, presentation of a proclamation to the following award-winning Deputy Pima County Attorneys. Deputy County Attorney James Allen Goodwin, recipient of the 2016 Arizona Felony Prosecutor of the Year, and the Michael C. Kudhe Criminal Justice Award. And then to Deputy County Attorney Francis Creamer Hope, recipient of the 2000, I think that was supposed to be Kramer. Okay, recipient of the 2016 Arizona Felony Prosecutor of the Year Award, and to Deputy County Attorney Daniel B. South, recipient of the 2016 David R. White Excellence in Victim Advocacy Award. I'll move the item.
Second.
Motion and a second. Objections? Hearing none, motion carries. Also would like to, since we're doing this presentation proclamation, recognize, and I think the County Attorney, our County Attorney Barbara Wall is with us in the audience. She just recently, I think on June 17th, received the Arizona Women Lawyers Association Sarah Herring Soren Award for professional excellence in the legal field, as well as paving the way to success for other female lawyers. So congratulations, Barbara.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Madam Chair, today we have a very nice take-home item for our lovely winner in great lumber, but we also have one for your office. And this is a proclamation that can hang in the office, and I'll go ahead and ask those 3 winners to step forward, if you wouldn't mind. Thank you very much. Great group. Good morning. Good morning. If you do slip this out later, don't let anyone know that, because your kids' pictures go great in those frames. There's lots of recycling you can do with one of these around the house or around the office. Thank you very much. I'm speaking from experience. This proclamation honoring award-winning deputy county attorneys from Pima County, and I'm glad Barbara Lawal is here today to see this and to be here to cheer you on. You deserve it. Whereas the Pima County Attorney's Office improves the public safety of our community by prosecuting violent, dangerous, and repeat felons by providing a voice to victims of crime in the criminal justice process. And whereas all of the attorneys and staff of the Pima County Attorney's Office are committed to the principles of integrity first, service before self, and the pursuit of excellence. And whereas the Arizona Prosecuting Attorneys Advisory Council named James Allen Goodwin Allen, Supervisor of the Special Victims Unit of the Pima County Attorney's Office, and Francis Kramer Hope Fran, Supervisor of the Domestic Violence Unit of the Pima County Attorney's Office, as Felony Prosecutors of the Year for the successful prosecution of Fernando and Sofia Richter, who had subjected Sofia Richter's 3 daughters to the indescribable abuse for over 2 years. And whereas the Arizona Prosecuting Attorneys Advisory Council honored Daniel B. South, Dan, prosecutor in the Special Victims Unit of the Pima County Attorney's Office, with the APAAC's David R. White Excellence in Victim Advocacy Award for his unrelenting efforts to provide victims with justice, accountability, and empowerment. And whereas the State Bar of Arizona honored James Allen Goodwin, that's James, with the Michael C. Cudahy Criminal Justice Award, because throughout his career, Allen has worked tirelessly to advance the principles of criminal justice by representing the public's interest with integrity, fairness, tenacity, creativity, brilliance, and professionalism. And whereas the tireless work of these 3 deputy county attorneys has significantly benefited the citizens and taxpayers of our community and exemplifies the high standards of excellence of the Pima County Attorney's Office. Now, therefore, the Pima County Board of Supervisors hereby recognizes and commends Deputy County Attorney James Allen Goodwin, recipient of the 2016 Arizona Felony Prosecutor of the Year Award and the Michael C. Cudahy Criminal Justice Award. Let me give you your plaque. Thank you. Deputy County Attorney Francis Kramer Hope, recipient of the 2016 Arizona Felony Prosecutor of the Year Award. There's your plaque. And Deputy County Attorney Daniel B. South, recipient of the 2016 David R. White Excellent in Victim Advocacy Award, passed and adopted this 5th day of July 2016. Excellent work. Would you all please, first off, congratulations. That was a very woeful and despicable act by a man and woman. Do you want to talk about that? Any type of reason that you continue to do what you do, and we'd love to hear from you all 3.
The Richter case is really one of those that, you know, at the end of your career, you're going to really remember, and it's going to be an important part of your career. We were really fortunate to be able to have a good working relationship with the Richter children, and that's really a testament to our entire team in the Special Victims Unit, and that led us to have a very successful result in what was a very difficult case, but a very trying case for the girls. So it was really a team effort, and we would not have been able to do it without our team in the Special Victims Unit. So thank you very much.
Everything that Alan said. I was his co-counsel on that case. It was a tough case for the girls to go through, but I think in the end, it really was an empowering experience for them to be able to get up and testify against Fernando and Sofia for everything that had happened to them. And like Alan said, it really was a team effort. We have a great team of paralegals and secretaries and other attorneys at the county attorney's office that we work together with. And it really is because of all of them that this case was successful. So thank you.
And we have our county attorney, Barbara Wall, present today. We also have our chief, Amelia Kramer. I would like to just thank Barbara Wall for the amazing services we have for victims in Pima County. The courthouse dog program, the kids in court program, each of these we have used, and we use on a regular basis in the special victims unit to get justice for victims. So I just really want to thank and commend Barbara Wall for what she's done for victims here.
And perhaps, let's have the county attorney join us.
This will be for you in your office, and probably some photos of
Wait.
congratulations.
Wait a second, sorry.
I just want to say how very deeply proud I am of not only these three attorneys, but of all the men and women who work in my office. They do incredible work, and it's very difficult, complex work. And these three in particular worked with some victims that initially did not want to say anything. They were totally silent. Dan's victim was a little 4-year-old girl who had unspeakable things done to her. And so they have to work for months getting the trust of these victims, because without the victims coming forward and testifying, it's impossible for prosecutors to hold the offenders accountable. They do extraordinary work that this entire community should be very, very pleased and proud to have people who are as dedicated, as committed, and who work as tirelessly to protect the public safety of this community as they do. I'm extraordinarily proud, and congratulations to all of you. These are very, very prestigious statewide awards. So thank you.
That concludes our presentation proclamation. We'll now move on to call to the audience. May I remind those of you who are speaking that you have 3 minutes, and please abide by the rules of civility. Looks like, is it Joshua Wiley?
Thank you all for your work. Really appreciate it.
Yes, hello, Madam Chair and Board of Supervisors. My name is Josh Riley, and I am a candidate for supervisor in District 4 with the Green Party. I spoke to all of you at the last meeting, and I prepared a sample ordinance, and I handed it in to the clerk of an ordinance in Seattle calling for a $15 minimum wage, which was passed in Seattle, and was passed by their city council. And I was calling for a similar ordinance to be at least placed on the agenda for this meeting and discussed by this board. So I'm urging you once again, please make $15 an hour minimum wage a county action, and make it the minimum wage throughout the county, in Pima County. I'd also like to say, failing that, if you could place a referendum for a $15 minimum wage on the agenda for discussion at your next meeting, and hopefully allow the voters of Pima County a chance to vote on a $15 minimum wage at the next election. As you all know, underemployment is a big problem in Pima County, and this is this would be a great initiative to put forward. Mr. Carroll, I know you're leaving office. It'd be great if I could have your support. Thank you all for your time.
Thank you. Deborah Pelham. Deborah?
Thank you. My name is Deborah Pella. I'm the president of the Probation Officers Association. Madam Chairman, members of the board, Madam Clerk, Mr. Huckabee, and staff. We'd like to thank you for taking that responsibility for our satellite offices and being willing to address the compensation issues. However, today I'm here to discuss the prospective healthcare changes in Mr. Huckleberry's budget memo. The reason that employers provide health care for workers is to secure a healthy workforce and to have better recruitment or retention. After reading that, I did a snap poll of my employees, the employees that are members. I find that the HSA works very well for people with high income and no real serious medical injuries, medical problems. However, it does not work for those with high bills. I have people who are telling me they are not going to the doctor because they can't afford it, and who have high debts, and the current HSA does not help them. I do not understand how these changes will fulfill the goals that I just set out. It would make it less affordable for employees who are not of high income and who have high medical costs. And more importantly, it would create a caste system among county employees. There will be 2 levels of support for health care in this county, and I cannot see how you will retain and recruit employees if one group of employees is treated better than other employees. So before the board makes any changes to the county health care plan, I would like to see that the board has taken these into account and has data to look at to see how these changes would affect the employees. Healthcare is just not a matter of cost, it is a matter of many things, and the Probation Officers Association urges you to think of those before you make any changes. Thank you very much.
Martin, that's East. Okay, oh, I see, that's a J. Okay, got it.
County Administrator, Madam Chair, members of the board, my name is Martin Bastidas. I am a student at Pima Community College and a Green candidate for the Board of Supervisors, District 5. I'm not sure how many people in the public are aware that Mr. Huckleberry's salary is a little over $320,000. He is the second best paid administrator in the country. The first best paid administrator is the administrator of Alley County. Alley County is the most populous county in the nation, having over 10 million people. In contrast, Pima County only has nearly 1 million people. Alley County has 10 times as much people as Pima County, and Mr. Huckleberry's salary is a little over about $35,000 short of the administrator of Alley County. Tucson is one of the poorest metropolitan areas in the nation, and yet our county administrator is being paid over $320,000. Mr. Huckleberry's salary is also more than the governor, the Secretary of State, and the Attorney General's salary combined. In the past meeting, my colleagues asked for a discussion on a possible $15 an hour ordinance countywide. A $15 an hour ordinance would help ignite Pima County's economy and be the fuel for a better lifestyle for people in Pima County. If the county administrator can get paid more than $320,000, then why can't the people of Pima County earn a livable wage of $15 an hour? I ask the board to please bring this up for discussion in the next meeting. Thank you.
Thank you. Christopher Cole.
Good morning. I'm Christopher Cole, First Vice Chair, Pima County Libertarian Party, as if you didn't know that. The last meeting, there was all this wonderful talking about response to the massacre there in Orlando. And it was said that nobody in America has a right to military weapons. Well, the good rabbi is wrong. The American people have the right and an obligation to military weapons. The founding fathers of the Declaration of Independence established the right and the obligation of a people to rebel when the government becomes a tyranny. The founding fathers knew from personal experience that a standing army is a tool of oppression, thus the militia. And the militia is, by definition, every male citizen in good health over the age of 17 and up through the age of 45, with certain exceptions and certain additions. In 1787, the militia and the army were trained. Not well trained, but they were trained. Both had muskets, cavalry, and artillery. Fast forward to today. The United States Army has assault rifles, machine guns, armored fighting vehicles, artillery, attack helicopters, and is exceptionally well trained. The militia is deliberately not trained and has perhaps a scattering of shotguns and hunting rifles. If a tyranny happens in America, it will be imposed by the government. The United States Army should, in theory, refuse to obey any orders to suppress a legitimate rebellion, because those orders would be illegal. But the legality of those orders would be decided by court-martial after the event. So at best, the United States Army would be divided. Some would support a legitimate rebellion, some would suppress it. The militia needs the military weaponry to defend the people from a tyranny. I am not saying that a tyranny exists now, nor am I saying that the American people should rebel now. I'm saying the government is composed of human beings, and a tyranny can be imposed, and a legitimate rebellion may be needed, and the people of America need the weapons needed to defend themselves. Thank you.
Thank you. Kevin Kvitsky?
Good morning, Madam Chair, Supervisors, and Mr. Huckleberry. Recently, there have been several pay packages offered by Mr. Huckleberry as it applied to the Sheriff's Department. The first challenged the STEP plan and recommended getting rid of it. This is the same plan that deputies and corrections hired into the department thinking that they would be paid. The same plan that recruited the last 8 years' worth of deputies and corrections officers. The same plan that the Board of Supervisors voted on and then never followed. The second plan, although very vague, seems to keep the STEP plan in place, and based on the verbiage appears to be given half decompression. It also appears that the personal contribution towards medical benefits will increase effectively, negating any pay increase that the majority of deputies and corrections will receive. The PCDSA and the PCCOA have worked tirelessly for over a year towards full decompression. The county budget is being balanced on the backs of its employees, and it isn't fair. Deputies and corrections have a hard job. They deal with horrific scenes and life-threatening situations. We have remained patient and have carried the county burden for over 8 years. The deputies and corrections officers deserve full decompression, not a manipulation of the numbers so you can try and justify why you choose to disregard them once again. By giving half decompression instead of full decompression will ultimately hurt the community. The level of service currently provided to the people of Pima County will decline because we will lose more deputies to other agencies, and the valuable training Pima County residents have already paid for will be not. It may be acceptable to the Board of Supervisors to lose the tenured deputies and to replace them with newer and cheaper deputies, but what is lost is the knowledge of the community investment that is passed down to newer deputies and corrections officers. The PCDSA and the PCOA have remained patient while attempting to work with the Board of Supervisors. We have entertained all of the delays presented by the Board of Supervisors, Mr. Huckleberry and Mr. Huckleberry, delays that have never happened before. The PCDSA and the PCCOA believe that the memorandum from 2008 sent to all sergeants and deputies was a contractual agreement. It outlined the STEP program and what each deputy would make for each year they were on the job, and has been used for 8 years as a recruitment tool. Deputies and new hires were told the Board of Supervisors and the Sheriff Administration that they would receive the STEP plan. So there was a reasonable expectation that would receive it. It was only after August of 2015, when I first came to the board, I called it a contract, that Mr. Huckleberry had advertisements immediately withdrawn and replaced with a pay range. The law in Arizona states that it is not necessary for an employer or employee to commit something to writing in a document that they both sign in order to create contractual liability on the part of the employer. Rather, a statement by the employee created contractual liability if it discloses, quote, a promissory intent or one that the employee could reasonably conclude constituted a commitment by the employer, end quote. Demasi versus ITT Corp. The county made the commitment when the Board of Supervisors voted on the STEP plan. Deputies and corrections officers have a reasonable expectation of that commitment. I stand here humbly asking you to do what is right by the men and women that protect and serve this community. Ethically and morally, there should be no other decision than full decompression, and a plan established to never allow this to happen again. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Jeff Barnes. Jeff Barnes. There you go.
Good morning, Madam Chair, Board of Supervisors. My name is Jeff Barnes. I'm an ASE certified heavy equipment mechanic with Food Services. I'm here to speak about the employee raise recommendation. First, I'd like to thank you for considering us for a raise. We would like to thank you for considering us to have a raise that will have a real impact on employees, especially those who are earning the least. Your employees are the hardest working and most talented you could ask for. Everybody before me has spoken what I would like to say, but the one thing that I would like to say since I've been here, this is my 17th year, health benefits have gone down consistently every year. Thank you very much for your time and consideration. I appreciate it.
Thank you for your hard work, Jeff. Very well done.
Madam Chairman and Board of Supervisors, my name is Jerry Achaboni and I live in Oro Valley. Well, I must commend Mr. Huckleberry that when his co-worker Martin Willett fell off his bike, and since the county and the city are self-funded for their insurance, we the taxpayers paid for his $millions suit. Mr. Huckleberry must have given Mr. Willett good advice not to run for the Board of Supervisors. Now we have an opponent of Supervisor Miller who fell off his bike last March, and he filed a lawsuit for $1 million and $50,000 for his wife. And again, the taxpayers are paying for it. He filed a suit in September. In a letter in the Arizona Daily Independent, his attorney wrote in the third paragraph, the attorney stated that her opponent, was unable to hold his 8-month-old baby and 3-year-old child, yet on a political sign, there he is holding his child. I find that strange. Apparently, Mr. Huckleberry didn't have the opportunity to advise Supervisor Miller's opponent not to run for the Board of Supervisors, especially when he's suing the taxpayers. Thank you very much.
Mike Cease. Mike Cease.
Madam Chairperson, I thank you for the opportunity to address the Board of Supervisors. My name is Mike Cease, and I'm the chairperson of the Green Party of Pima County. The Green Party applauds your current efforts to improve local government transparency and responsiveness to the public and to the media. That being said, this public documents matter seems to have become a distraction for both your body and for the media covering Pima County deliberations. We noticed that the $15 per hour minimum wage ordinance proposal, which we brought to your attention at your last meeting, did not appear on today's agenda. This important issue for the citizens of Pima County has now become extremely time sensitive. Therefore, we respectfully implore the board to place 2 agenda items on its August 2nd meeting agenda calendar. Agenda item number 1, proposal for a Seattle-like $15 an hour minimum wage ordinance for adoption by the Board of Supervisors, and second, agenda item 2, failing number 1, a proposal for adoption by the Board of Supervisors to place the measure as a referendum for the vote of the people on the Pima County general election ballot for November 8th. The second agenda item is critically time sensitive since the general election ballot goes to print immediately following the August 30th primary election date, as you well know. Of course, the Green Party of Pima County hopes that the board will step up to the plate for its citizens and adopt agenda item 1 directly, as did the city of Seattle. If this occurs, then obviously the ballot measure agenda item number 2 could be removed from your August 2nd meeting schedule. Thank you, Madam Chairwoman. We look forward to working together with your offices and with county ordinance staff professionals to provide further background information on this important proposal.
Thank you, Mr. Cease. Joseph Callahan.
Thank you, honorable board members,
I've actually been to
chairperson.
the Eagle Cafe in Downey.
Oh, you've been there? Yeah, it's a nice little place. I just got back from a trip to New Mexico. Not as lovely as Arizona, of course, but still a good state to visit. I'm in support of 15 now, and I'm with Occupy Tucson, and I just want to make a couple points in support of it. First of all, Pew Research Center did a study showing that you need to earn at least, I think the number was $14.73 to be able to afford having a family in Tucson, a very inexpensive city. So we need $15 an hour just to have a livable wage in Tucson, okay? Second of all, the studies of Seattle, Los Angeles, and San Francisco has shown little to no increases in unemployment due to a raise in the minimum wage. Now, what happened in Seattle is they did it in steps. If you raise the minimum wage 50 cents eventually to 15, there's very little effect in unemployment. So I hope that you will read the studies or contact me and I can send you that information. Raises in the minimum wage raise wages for all people. So if somebody says, well, I'm only making 13, statistically, they've done the studies that will raise everybody's wages. You won't be making 13 anymore, you'll be making more than 15. Anybody who argues that somebody working at a fast food restaurant isn't earning it needs to work at a fast food restaurant for a month to see how hard that is. Anybody who's worked those jobs knows how much they're doing. So certainly, and there's also been studies that show, well, okay, if we raise the minimum wage to 15, oh my God, food prices will go up. That Big Mac will cost 35 cents more. We can afford it to live in a better community. We can afford it. We need to support all workers. And the last question I have for the board and everybody here, how many of you can live on the current minimum wage? Ask yourself that before rejecting this. Thank you very much, and I support putting this as a referendum or bringing it up actually at the Board of Supervisors meeting. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Our last speaker is Jim Owen.
Good morning. My name is Jim Owen. I've been a Pima County worker for 10 years. I spent the first 5 months of this year going to county work sites talking to people about a raise. I talked to workers out at Mission Road where I work, and since I get off at 4, I'd come downtown and ride the elevators at Legal Building, Public Works, and B of A, and talk to any county worker who got on it. I almost got sick on that B of A elevator, that's pretty bad. I spoke to workers in every county office downtown. Saturdays and after work, I hit all 27 branches of the library, and I also, at least once, and I also hit the health department offices, including animal care. I spoke to hundreds and hundreds of county workers this year, many of them union members, but most of them not. I'm also using the last little bit of my vacation time this morning because it's important that you know what I found out. County workers want a raise. You knew that already. And if you looked at the salary survey and the lack of raises over the last 10 years, you also know they deserve one. What you may not know is how much they need a raise. Some of them desperately. They have the same ever-growing expenses associated with all the emergencies, problems, hopes, and aspirations for their families that you have with yours. Work is a verb, not a noun. It's not a place you go, but what you do when you get there. I didn't learn that at the library. I saw that at every work site I visited. Raise means to lift up. It's only right that we lift up the ones who do that work. That's what's so extraordinary about this, Mr. Huckleberry's memo on employee compensation. It begins with the moral question of how to value differing jobs. You won't find morality in most government documents. It recognizes the need for a progressive raise. It also is very creative in finding many revenue streams and cost savings to pay for that raise responsibly. Also not very government-like. So I ask that you approve this budget that includes a significant and long overdue raise for your workers. Now, I spent a lot of Tuesday mornings standing right here asking you to consider this very type of raise. And as I waited for my turn to speak on those mornings, I have been surprised and saddened by the amount of abuse routinely heaped on this board. So I thought it only right that I should come here today and say thank you. Thank you for this. And thanks to this board for the deliberations on this budget and all the other important work that you do. I'm very proud to be a county worker today, and I thank you for that.
Thank you, Mr. Wall. That concludes call to the public. We're now in the special final budget adoption meeting. This is a hearing on final budget adoption. We have a number of speakers. Again, we have 3 minutes. Please abide by the rules of civility. Kevin Kavitsky.
I'll refrain.
What?
I'll refrain. I'm good. Thank you.
You're done?
I'm done. Thank you.
Thank you. Sheriff Manos?
Good morning, Madam Chair, board members, Mr. Huckleberry. First of all, I'd like to thank Mr. Huckleberry and his staff for working with us throughout the last couple of months on a very important issue, decompression. Mr. Huckleberry had some concerns, as did others, myself included, of some of the, with what the package I presented earlier about a month ago, at $7.5 million. And some of that concern, of course, was at the top end of those pay ranges, excuse me, where they were pretty high pay ranges. But that's only affecting about 10 to 12% of the employees that I have. Less than 20% actually would be impacted by that. And I understand the perception there, but the real issue for me is still full decompression. About 3 years ago, I started meeting with board members and association members of our different various association groups, and from that day to the last day, it's always been the number one topic and the number one issue for us is decompression, full decompression. What Mr. Huckleberry's proposed to the board is a fair plan. It's fair in that it offers some pretty significant raises, but it doesn't cover full decompression. It covers half of decompression. So what I'd like the board to consider is 2 options. One, if you can't do full decompression, that's $7.5 million, where I'm still contributing to it, at least $2 million of my budget to work around that. So 5.5 to you. If you can't do that on, I think, August 21, then I'd ask that you consider a second option, and that is do half now and do half again in January. If that's not acceptable, more important to me would be full decompression at the exact same dollars committed this year, 3.8 million, 2 of mine, 1.8 of yours, 3.8 million, you put that off to January, and then you get full compression. One other issue is the position on step raises and doing away with the step program. I strongly disagree that that's a contract, that that's any kind of right or anything. I look at it more as a measuring tool, a yardstick, if you will, so we can stay competitive with those other agencies out there in the marketplace for law enforcement. We always brag about how we are the best in the state, and we're the best in the nation. So I think it's important that we stay that way. And the only way you're going to do that is use the same comparative yardstick that others use. We did a survey, 9 out of 10 agencies in this area use step plans. I understand the concerns. It is not, in my opinion, any type of guarantee or promise. It is simply a tool we use to keep ourselves competitive. With the hiring going on in the next few years, with DPS threatening to hire over 200, Phoenix is threatening the same with about 200. Tucson Police came out recently with another 100. They're going to have to look elsewhere. You're just not going to find that in your civilian workforce. They're going to come to other law enforcement agencies, and we're going to be one of the first ones they look at because we do a great job in hiring employees and training our employees. So I've asked you to make consideration to those three things, and like I say, we're still committed to working with you. We're still committed to doing whatever it takes. But I think for full decompression, you have some options ahead to look at. I thank you.
Thank you, Sheriff.
Good morning, Madam Chair.
Brian, before you start, I want to make sure. Supervisor Miller, are you still with us?
Yes, I am.
You are. Okay, thank you. Proceed.
Good morning, Madam Chair and Supervisors. My name is Brian Johnson. I'm a 10-year county employee, but I'm speaking here mostly today because I'm a candidate for the office of assessor. I'm here in support of the employee compensation proposal that Mr. Huckleberry came up with. I think it's excellent. It does a lot to help, especially the lower end salaried employees to move them up. The only problem I had with it was this part about the department heads and elected officials certifying compliance, to this budget, that they're going to make cuts or do other various issues, or they could not sign this and then their employees not get the raise. I think that's pretty problematic if any department were to not get a raise in this package, if you pass it. Just to give you an example, say the assessor's office gets hit hard, their budget gets hit hard this coming year with all the lawsuits that they're propagating or have against them, like the public records request lawsuit, Paradigm, the B Staples. And then what happens if their employees about these raises, if the budget gets hit hard with some other things that come about with it. So I think overall this is a great proposal, but just kind of eliminate that whole certification thing. Okay, thank you.
So how would you then do compliance?
Compliance, I think maybe the board should take a little bit more control over some of those budgets and not just allow individuals department heads or elected officials to just give them a budget and let them go willy-nilly like you've done in the assessor's office.
Thank you. That concludes our speakers. We're on item 7, final budget hearing, and final budget for fiscal year 2016-17, resolution 2016-41. What's the pleasure of the board on this item?
Well, Madam Chair, I just wanted to make a couple comments here before we move any further into this discussion and a vote on the final budget. I certainly appreciate the compensation memo that was put together by Mr. Huckleberry and support the vast majority of it. But I am concerned about retracting progress that we've made on health insurance for employees. We heard from a member here of SEIU who was here to talk to us, heavy equipment operator, and I thought she spoke quite correctly in that we've lost a lot of ground in health insurance. It's certainly been that way in the 15 years that I've been here at the county. I guess it's more than 15 years now, because I was an employee for 18, something like that, I don't know. Ozzie and Harriet wasn't on TV yet, but needless to say, we have lost ground. And we made a move to self-insurance in an attempt to try and make up some ground and start making decisions about our own destiny and about the destiny of our own employees and their health. And as Mr. Huckleberry correctly notes in one of his memos that we have a system that has bifurcated benefits for employees numerous times, but we should not continue that. And frankly, this board came together in April and made a decision on the insurance package for the coming year that we all agreed to, and it was without discussion by our employees. And there was some tough decisions in that. Eliminating the PPO completely as an option for our employees it was a big step for us. We've made that decision. I think if we're going to continue to change and alter insurance options for our employees in the next year, that really needs to go through the proper channels and be vetted through our employee organizations that comment on insurance, and as well as meet and confer. So there's two options there for us to continue on in this discussion. And then we can have a fully vetted conversation as a part of next year's budget, which seems to me to make a lot more sense than throwing something together here that almost seems like, well, we'll give you a little bit, but we're going to take a little bit. And that's somewhere out there in maybe not so fair then. Okay? Richard's opinion. The other thing that we've done here is to leave the intermittent employees out of the deal as well. And that's an expensive deal, I understand. Another $2 million in cost. Is that correct, Mr. Huckleberry?
Madam Chair, Supervisor Elias, it's $200,000.
Pardon me?
$200,000.
$200,000 just for them, okay. So that's not so bad. In all candor, I think it makes sense to include them along. They pay the same for a loaf of bread as everybody else does. I realize that puts some pressure on Mr. Huckleberry to find some additional dollars in the budget to be able to do this, and creates recurring debt that we will have to deal with next year. But I also think that that's fair in terms of dealing with our intermittent employees. And if the board sees fit that that's not such a good idea, I would suggest that maybe we start with our intermittent employees in January, so that cost is reduced even more for this year, and we can find a way to make sure that we fund it for next year. But I think leaving them off the table completely is unfair, and maybe something that we really need to consider carefully here as we make this final budget adoption. These folks that we're talking about have spoken passionately to us, the sheriffs and decompression. I think we're starting to get a handle on. We realize that we have more work to do there, and that work's probably going to take us till next year to get done, Chris. And I certainly appreciate and honor the work that our sheriffs do. I've said that numerous times during the vetting of this discussion regarding decompression for the sheriff's office. I remain in that place. I'll always respect you guys and appreciate the work you do and honor that work. But we also have our financial limitations as well. I think we're making a really good faith effort to get back to it, and we promise that we will get back to it and finish it in the next year or so here. I think it's very important that we do that. Of course, November looms large. The makeup of this board could change. So we need to be duly aware of that as well. But I think we're in the right direction in terms of showing our goodwill and starting to take care of our employees after a long period of riding their backs to financial solvency. And that was important. Make no mistake. Make no mistake. Our employees helped us. They made a difference. This was really the only local government that was able to sustain itself and maintain the level of services that we offered throughout the financial crisis that this country has been through since 2008. And largely that's because our employees come in and bust their butts every day doing their jobs and have been doing that without a raise. And I'm damn proud of every single one of you guys for doing that every single day. So now the time has come to start being right with our employees again. I think this is a good opportunity to do that. With that, I turn the floor back to the chair. Thank you.
What's pleasure of the board regarding this item?
Madam Chair.
Oh, Supervisor.
Madam Chair.
I have Supervisor Miller, Supervisor Valadez has the floor, and then I'll recognize you.
I thought it was a voice from Kevin Allen, but I thought I was that good this morning. I don't know.
Mr. Huckberry, I have a couple of questions. First of all, Supervisor Elias mentioned interim employees. Who are interim employees? Intermittent, I'm sorry.
Yes, Madam Chair and members of the board, intermittent employees are an employee who may get a paycheck, and some of them may only get 2 paychecks during the year. We have about 3,400 intermittent employees in the county, but 2,200 of those are election workers. And so they're the folks who go to the polls to provide that election services, typically 2 days a year. Approximately another 375 to 300 are basically summer youth. Basically, that's what we classify as intermittent employees. 360 library pages, etc. And so these are the intermittent employees who typically work less than 1040, there's 1,040 hours a year. And I guess many of them, like election workers, are going to work 16 hours a year.
Madam Chair, Mr. Huckberry, my understanding is on the benefits memo that the issues that you brought up are really, you're looking for us as a board to give you a direction without really giving you numerical values because those have yet to be worked out. Is that correct?
Madam Chair and members of the board, yes. If you looked at my compensation memo, it contains 3 paragraphs, A, B, and C, that deal with benefits. And those are, the one that is the HSA is what we talked about. We ought to consider whether or not we offer it to new employees, and there's no time frame on that. We annually spend about $8.1 million by contributions to employees' health benefit plans or the health savings accounts. The issue is whether or not we should continue at that level for new employees. What we said is that we need to look at it and study it. And I think in all cases, anything that deals with the benefits will go back through the standard processes that we've established and this board has established with regard to the Health Benefits Committee or even being conferred. Those are the appropriate places. But I think the concept here is whether or not we should continue, making those contributions to new employees and at what level do we continue. It's an annual appropriation process, and so every year that's subject to the board's direction. And with regard to B, we really talked about new employees and whether or not a typical employee today that can take advantage of all 4 premium health discounts pays nothing for health insurance. And so the concept that I've talked about is putting in a floor of $10 per pay period for new employees, but that only takes effect January 1st. So that's obviously something that has to go through this process and hopefully come back to the board, as well as A will come back to the board. C is this concept of how do we share in the future increases in cost of our health care? We are self-insured. We basically have seen that our premiums are moderating rather significantly. Increases that used to be double-digit are now in the 5 and 6% range. And the question is this is an annual basis that we have to go through and calculate the actuarial experience and come up with a new rate increase if there is one. It could be very little, a few $100,000, or it could be, several million. And so the question there is whether or not we begin to share that incremental increase. And I think it's important to understand that's increase at 50-50. That basically tends to get right now, I think the county pays about 88% of the premium cost and the employee 12%. Should that be altered into the future back down the way it typically has been in the past, 80-20 or even 75-25 at one time a few years ago. So those are options, obviously. Those are things that are not being decided today, but just simply the concepts of how do we create what we call the recurring revenues to pay for these raises into the future. And as you noted in my memorandum, I indicated we have to look for actual recurring revenues as opposed to one time. We've identified a number of those recurring revenues and basically found as much as $7 or $8 million in recurring. It means we have to find $5 million in one-time revenues to make the budget balance with this particular pay proposal. And that's not that risky, given the fact that the tax base is beginning to grow again at 2 to 3% a year. So I'm sure that, frankly, we will probably have those recurring revenues next year, but it's not guaranteed.
So with just to sum up, what we're looking at is we're saying please proceed and explore these alternatives, and then we go through the appropriate channels, whether that be HIPWAC or the Meet and Confer Committee. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Thank you. Supervisor Miller. Supervisor Miller? You have
Madam Chair?
Yeah. You have a question?
Okay. Yes, I have some comments I'd like to make regarding the budget item. First of all, I do believe our sheriff deputies do in fact deserve full decompression. I could live with the proposals that Sheriff Nano put on the table, half now and half at the beginning of 2017 that would fully decompress them. The deputies have come before the board on multiple occasions, and whether there is a contractual commitment is debatable. However, there clearly was either a document or a verbal program presented to the deputies during the hiring process outlining step increase progression for deputies at the time of hire. This has been asserted by deputies over and over again, and it's also evidenced by Mr. Huckleberry's memo outlining his proposal to eliminate step increases for both existing and new hires. I want to be clear on my position on new hires. I do believe this is a reasonable and fair to eliminate the step plan for new hires and go to strictly salary ranges. And whether this step plan is contractual with the existing employees or not, we all know this information was clearly presented to them. And at issue for me is the elimination of this step plan for the existing personnel. I believe this sets the county up for possible litigation. We have been, once before, we had to pay, I think it was between $5 and $6 million when the courts ruled that Pima County had to pay that money for eliminating a benefit that was promised for existing employees. And so that concerns me. And whether we believe the step increases were promised or not, or excuse me, are a contractual obligation or not, it is the right thing to do because we made these promises when we hired deputies. And the other thing that I'd like to discuss is the fact that we have a number of vacancies. It's approximately 916 full-time employees, yet we are increasing the county headcount by 103 employees this year. I would like to see us eliminate the majority of those vacancies first. And this is approximately 13% of the budgeted number of positions in Pima County. And my concern with this relates to the memos that we received from the clerk of the Superior Court and the superintendent regarding the difficulties that they're going to have in coming up with these monies to fund the salary increases out of their existing budget. I don't believe we should increase their budgets, but I also believe we could do a better job identifying which departments are cut to the bone and others who have more ability to absorb these increases and where we can find monies in possibly other departments to help fund the departments that are already cut to the bone. And I also don't feel that we received an adequate explanation for the skyrocketing county administrative overhead. Since fiscal year 2010-11 to this year, the increase is approximately 74%. And I feel that we could explore some cutting there. There's something seriously going on when you have that large an increase in county administrative overhead. And I understand there were some accounting changes. However, this is clearly something that needs to be evaluated further. And the $4.75 million that we have for patient preservation in this coming budget is these monies were moved into the capital improvement account. And these are for monies that we're receiving this year above and beyond what we were expecting. And I find it troubling that we aren't budgeting any money, further money from separate and DLC revenues that we're expecting in the next fiscal year. And so based upon these items, I'd like to see a kind of more evaluation of the step increases, a further evaluation of the overhead. And I am not going to be able to support the final budget adoption unless we address this issue. Thank you.
Any other comments from board members? What's the pleasure of the board?
Madam Chair?
Supervisor.
I'd like to take the pay and compensation package separately and ask for roll call vote. I move that we approve the pay package and benefits package as discussed.
We've got to close the hearing.
And close the public hearing.
Wait a minute.
No, we got to close.
We got to close the public hearing first.
All right.
I'd entertain a motion to close.
So
the
moved.
Is there a motion and a second to close the public hearing? Any objections? Hearing none, motion carries. Supervisor Valdez.
Madam Chair, I move that we adopt the compensation and benefits package as discussed.
Is there a second?
No, sir.
I don't understand your motion,
Yeah,
really.
I'm not
Is it
sure.
as discussed with including the sheriff's discussion?
I mean, what do we,
Stated in Mr. Huckleberry's memo.
okay, we're, as in Mr. Huckle, approve the compensation package as presented in Mr. Huckleberry's memo. I need a point of clarity. Is there a second? I'll second for purposes of discussion. Mr. Weaver, in terms of final budget adoption, is this something we can do separately, or we've never met here?
Yes, we have.
Madam Chair, I think you can do what the supervisor's office has proposed, but you're going to have to ultimately have a vote on the final budget.
Okay,
Right?
that's what I thought. Okay.
Can I
That's
ask a
all.
roll call vote?
Okay, roll call.
Madam Chair,
Supervisor.
you know, I don't know that I can support the motion. I want to, but I think that we need to make some things very clear there. Number one, as far as these insurance options, A, B, and C, that are included in the memo, I would ask the maker of the motion to please note in his motion that the Board of Supervisors is not supporting any one of those discussion items, and that they're merely up for discussion as a part of a broader picture discussion about health insurance for our employees. Because I think it'd be patently wrong and out of character for us to support those or imply that there's any level of support for options A, B, or C at this particular juncture. That kind of throws the whole process off, and Mr. Huckleberry can say that it's fine, yeah, we'll talk to meet and confer, or sort of, or whatever. See, if we do that today, we're getting on board. So I don't mind us opening up to some relevant discussions about how we're gonna make up for money that we need to make. Should pay recurring debt. But I don't think we should offer any level of support to any of those options, or we should not imply any level of support. And we should give our employees and the organizations that represent them the opportunity to do their thing, myself, as a partner.
Madam Chair, to that point.
Supervisor.
Madam Chair, and that was my line of question with Mr. Huckleberry, to make it very clear that we're choosing to explore these alternatives, but we're not giving our blessing necessarily to it.
I think it's just important that we explicitly say that right now.
I think we're just.
Because the action of this board is very, very problematic in that sense, and that's why I'm asking that it be included as a part of this motion.
Is that okay with you?
Yes.
Okay? And then the issue for intermittent employees remains hanging out there.
We can put that in this packet.
Okay.
That's part of it.
You're willing to do that?
For point of clarification, that was how much, Mr. Huckleberry? What was the total cost now?
$200,000.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, in that case, then I'm perfectly willing to go on with discussion and support the motion.
Okay, there's no further supervisor.
Madam Chair, I have clarification of one. I listened to the sheriff's presentation. It was calling Mr. Huckleberry's suggestion on the budget memo for compensation a fair place to start. Is there going to be any consideration that, you can see that the sheriff has made some effort in his own department to try to find some of the money to get his deputies and clericals the type of increase in pay that they all seek? Is there any hope in your idea or your budget that you can review this in January as far as the second half is said by the sheriff? Would that be acceptable in your motion to review the sheriff's recommendation in January?
I think that's more appropriate for the full budget, but the reality is we've already set the ceiling, so there's no wiggle room.
And if I may interrupt, Madam Chair. My concern is very simple. The part of the pay package that we want to do, I mean, the row officers have the ability to just worry about the employees that they have underneath them. We have to worry about all our employees. And the reality is that being the perspective that we've got to look at, it becomes very difficult to just segment one segment and not take care of the other employees that we have. So I'm going to have some issues supporting that at this point, but that's why.
Well, and the reality is, all our employees at one point were promised step increases. We've now segued with most employees to ranges as opposed to step increases, but it doesn't just apply to one class of employees, so that makes it problematic. But it's certainly the elephant in the room, and compensation is what we're trying to get. I think we all want to get to the same place. It's how soon we can get there, and how we find the continued revenue streams This is just, from a fiscal perspective, so we don't find ourselves in a structural deficit.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just wanted to clarify
Supervisor.
that for myself as well as the supervisor joining us telephonically. I think both of us said the same question. Thank you.
Supervisor Elias.
I'd just say that I would concur with the chair on this particular item, and it's not out of
Not out of deference to my age.
Well, I'm not gonna touch that one because
Good idea.
we still got items to discuss here, so it could be on the table, sure. No, in all candor, Chair Bronson is correct. We have to be concerned about keeping ourselves financially solid in this particular deal. And Supervisor Valadez is correct as well. We have to look out for the whole. And so in trying to do that, it becomes very difficult, and none of us are blessed with the wisdom of King Solomon, although some of us might think that. I would say that our word is good, and the elephant is in the room, and we welcome it to be here in the room, to be quite honest, because it does need to be made right. But we also need to recognize that we need to take care of the whole of the county as well. And we have those 7,000 employees and their families and their children to consider and to think about. And so, in all fairness, I think this is a good option for us and a good package for us.
Okay, are we all done commenting? All right, the roll call.
Supervisor Carroll.
No.
Supervisor Elias.
Aye.
Supervisor Miller.
No.
Supervisor Valadez.
Aye.
Chair Bronson.
Aye. Motion carries. Now we're on to the entire final budget. Supervisor Holidays.
Madam Chair, I move that we approve item number 7 in its entirety and resolution number 2016-41.
Motion and second discussion. Roll call.
Supervisor Carroll.
No.
Supervisor Elias.
Aye.
Supervisor Miller.
No.
Supervisor Valadez.
Aye.
Chair Bronson.
Aye. Motion carries. Okay, that brings us to the end of the special final budget adoption meeting. We now move back to our regular agenda. We have 3 executive session items, 2 on the agenda. I didn't make a motion.
So moved.
Second. Is there any objection? We will convene in the executive session, reconvening in the regular session at the sound of
Well, only that, she was actually kind of, and it occurred. Probably like you were, it's difficult to put that in words because your first reaction is, oh, this poor kid, you know, like, you know, liability issues exist, you gotta address it. Right? Well, it's because of the age.
True, it's that's
There we go. We're back in session, regular session. We have 3 exec items. Council.
Madam Chair, item 8 on the agenda is an executive session for legal advice and direction regarding Padilla versus Pima County Sheriff's Department. The attorney seeks direction on whether or not to proceed with the proposed settlement.
What's the pleasure of the board?
Madam Chair,
Supervisor Elias.
I move that we proceed with settlement as discussed in executive session.
Motion and a second. Do I hear any objections? Supervisor Miller, are you with us?
Yes.
Very good. Okay. There are no objections and motion carries. Next item.
Item 2 on the agenda is an executive session for 2 related cases, Larson and Jackson. County attorney seeks direction on whether to proceed with an appeal of the Larson case. The Jackson case is on for advice only.
What's the pleasure of the board?
Madam Chair,
Supervisor Elias.
I move that we proceed as discussed in executive session.
An appeal?
Yes, ma'am.
Motion and a second. Objections? Hearing none, motion carries. Item 3.
Item 3 on the agenda is an executive session for legal advice and direction regarding the claim of Cassandra Herrera. County attorney seeks direction on whether to proceed with the proposed settlement.
What's the pleasure of the board?
Madam Chair, I move that we proceed with settlement as discussed in executive session.
The motion and a second. Any objection? Hearing none, motion carries. I want to move quickly to the, I think it's the amendment agenda, because we have some people who have to leave. And it's item 7, the 160 North Stone. Staff is recommending approval for, no, it's one, they changed it to 160 North Stone.
Madam Chair.
Supervisor.
Madam Chair, I think we need to cooperate with our friends over at the Indian Center, and I think it's a good reason for many issues related to the number of county buildings that we have currently in downtown, but I'd like Mr. Huckleberry to comment on that, please.
Yes, Madam Chair and members of the board, this is a companion action with regard to our previous action releasing 97 East Congress to the Service Mining and Technology Division Caterpillar. The Tucson Indian Center has occupied the first floor of 97 East Congress ever since we actually purchased the building a number of years ago. They've been a tenant in that building in good standing. We then, in this action, obviously need to relocate them. Our relocation preference has been 160 North Stone, also a building that the county purchased 2 years ago for the purposes of justice courts because we previously had leased space in La Pasita Village, and the rental payments that we're paying were $682,000 a year. We purchased 160 North Stone for $635,000. So in our 30 months of occupancy of 160 North Stone, we saved and deferred about $900,000 in lease or rent. We have to subtract from that our operating expenses, which were $250,000, and therefore, essentially, the building is paid for itself. In our discussions with the Tucson Indian Center, we first talked about just relocating them and continuing their lease. They indicated a desire to actually purchase the building, and I think we prefer that they would purchase the building because some people say we own too many buildings in downtown, and this would allow that building to go back in private ownership. We reached an agreement with them to have them purchase the building at 90% of its appraised value. And its appraised value is about $1.4 million, so this would be an acquisition of about 1.2. We've agreed to put as much as $270,000 in tenant improvements in the building to build the facilities suitable for the Tucson Indian Center. What staff and I are recommending is that to fulfill our obligations with Caterpillar, to reduce the number of county-owned buildings in the downtown, and to provide the Tucson Indian Center with a long-term permanent home, we recommend your approval of Second Amendment that sets up the process for the Tucson Indian Center to purchase this building.
Thank you, Mr. Huckleberry. Supervisor.
I'll go ahead and move. Well, number one, I wanted to apologize to the public that might be listening and to those in this room. We apparently have some interference going on here, and I can hear other people talking. I'm not quite sure what's happening to our sound system, but if there's folks out there who can't hear, there's obviously something else going on around here. So, anyways, just wanted to mention that. But with that said, I'm going to move item 7 on the sale of 97 East Congress.
Second.
Motion and a second.
Second.
You're seconding it, Ms. Supervisor Miller?
Madam Chair, I didn't hear the motion. I heard Supervisor Elias say that he was going to move approval.
He moved approval, and there was a second from Supervisor Valadez.
Okay, I will vote in the affirmative.
Okay, thank you. Is there any objections? Supervisor Miller is a yes. Any objections? Hearing none, motion carries unanimously. Okay, moving back to the regular agenda. We are now the Board of Supervisors sitting as other boards. Under Flood Control District Board, items 9, 10, and 11. What's the pleasure of the board on those 3 items?
3 items. Second.
A motion and a second to approve items 9, 10, and 11 under Flood Control District Board. Are there any objections? Hearing none, motion carries unanimously. We now move on to item 12, which is the approval of the consent calendar. Does anybody on the board wish to divide the question on the consent calendar? If not, what's pleasure of the board?
Madam Chair? Madam Chair,
Supervisor Lees.
I'll go ahead and move consent in its entirety.
Is there a second? There's a motion and a second to move consent in its entirety. Are there any objections? Hearing none, motion carries. Moving on to item 13, Board of Supervisors, again sitting as the Board of Supervisors. County Administrative Board of Supervisors policy regarding the naming of county facilities and programs. What's the pleasure of the board on this side?
Madam Chair,
Supervisor.
I'll go ahead and move that item as well.
Motion and a second. Any objections? Hearing none, motion carries. Supervisor Miller, are you with us? Okay, looks like we're disconnected. Well, I assume staff is going to try to reconnect. We're going to move on. We're on Fire District.
So item 13 did pass?
Item 13 passed.
Okay, thank you very much.
Yeah, we think it can pass 4-0 with Supervisor Miller not being able to participate.
Just wanted to clarify.
Fire District, temporary fire district, what's the pleasure of the board on that? Item 14.
Madam Chair,
Supervisor.
I'd like to go ahead and move the item for Canterbury Fire District as far as the Wind Ridge annexation.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? Any objections? Hearing none, motion carries. Moving on to IDA, item 16, and resolution 2016-42. 15, I don't want to do 15.
Madam Chair.
Let's do 15. Let's pleasure the board on finance and risk management quarterly report.
Madam Chair, I'll go ahead and move item 15, 16, including resolution 2016-42, and item 17, donation of patrol vehicle to JTEC.
Motion and a second. Discussion? Objections? Hearing none, motion carries. Our Supervisor Miller, have you rejoined us? Not yet. We're moving on to item 18.
Madam Chair,
Supervisor.
I'll go ahead and move item 18 as amended.
Motion and a second. Any objections? Hearing none, motion carries. We're moving on to hearings now. These are franchise licensing permits. It's items 19 and 20. Note that item 19 has a sheriff's report. These are hearings. Is there anyone in the audience that wishes to address us on these items at this time? If not, what's the pleasure of the board?
Madam Chair,
Supervisor.
seeing nobody come forward to address us, I'm going to move to close the public hearing and approve item 19, and making note of the sheriff's report related to this item, and item 20.
There's a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion and a second. Any objections? Hearing none, motion carries. Moving on to item 21. This is a hearing, the type 3 conditional use permit, communication tower. Is there anyone in the audience that wishes to address us on this item in opposition at this time? In opposition. If not, what's the pleasure of the board?
Madam Chair.
Supervisor.
Thank you. Madam Chair, I'd like to go ahead, close the public hearing and move to approve.
Subject to standard and special
Subject to
conditions.
standard and special conditions.
All right, any objections? Hearing none, motion carries. Moving on to item 22, these are hearings. We have a number of speakers. As is the normal procedure here, does the developer wish to make comments first or at this point, or do you want to wait? Okay, we'll just call the speakers then. Let's see, we've got Charlene, are you still with us? I didn't think I saw.
She was seated over there, I don't see her any longer.
No, it looks like she left.
I think Bud Foster's there.
So, okay. Skipper, and it looks like Haggam.
A-R-D, Haggard.
Oh, Haggard, okay.
Skipper Haggard. That is correct. Thank you.
Sir, please step over to the microphone.
All right, can you hear me better now?
Yes, that's much better, thank you, sir.
I'm here to ask you to vote in opposition to the rezoning of the Sunset Road development. 20 years ago, I started Keno Hospital as a transportation orderly. I am now the senior manager of house supervisor for Banner Health Systems in Tucson. For over a decade, I've saved and dreamed and had hopes and aspirations for my family. I have purchased this land and intend to build my final home there. Voting for this would diminish my dream, and it impacts both quantitative and qualitative my hope for a different lifestyle. And I thank you for your time.
Thank you. Barbara DeWitt.
Hello, and thank you for hearing me, Madam Chair and distinguished board members. I moved to Tucson about 4 years ago from Washington, D.C., and I purchased a lovely parcel on Sunset Road, and it is approximately over 3 acres, 3.3. I built a custom home there. I adhered to all of the very strict building guidelines, zoning setbacks, buffer zones, all to preserve wildlife, have minimal lighting, minimal impact on the desert, and to continue to keep Tucson beautiful. I strongly oppose the rezoning. Sunset Road is already being devastated by the new I-10 off-ramp. I'm a real estate agent also. There are typically during the year at any time more than 7,000 homes that are available for resale. This is just more new construction, devastates the market, diminishes our home values. And I think it's very unfair that I had to position my home and only disturb like a very small percentage of desert land and position the house not where I would want to put it on the land, but what was governed by the building restrictions and guidelines. I adhered to those. I think it's extremely unfair that someone comes in and rapes the land and just diminishes the value of the cactus forest. There are new homes being built north of Tangerine. They're flying off the shelf. I would encourage the developer to look at that location and keep in Tucson's promise to close the building, the gap between us and Casa Grande. And I not only adhere to all those building restrictions, everyone in my vicinity has. I just think it's extremely unfair to even consider this proposal. So I thank you all for your time and consideration.
Thank you.
Madam Chair, I would just comment that while I'm sympathetic to the speaker and what she's saying, please recognize that there is already approved plat on this property that frankly would be much more damaging than what's being proposed right now, which is in fact compliant with all the rules that we have around building, and frankly, the developer has also worked to manage to get this proposed rezoning in compliance with maybe Meehan CLT. So that's something that really needed a lot of work on it from when this board took a look at the comprehensive plan amendment. And I just wanted to note that I am sympathetic to what you're saying. The Elias family has been here for hundreds of years, and I assure you we have not been in agreement with a lot of the zoning decisions that have taken place in Tucson, or in Pima County, period. But we also need to understand that there is existing underlying plat that is already there that frankly would be much worse for you than what we're looking at here today. So I just wanted to comment on that.
Thank you, Supervisor Elias. Charles Shumway.
I live out of this area, I live directly across the street from the proposed project. And the project that is proposed, I take a little bit of deference to what your observation is. I've walked that property. I've seen the saguaros that they tagged that they're going to move. Some of these saguaros have 5, 6, 7, 8 arms on them. Some of those saguaros are doubles and triples. They're not going to be easily transplanted, so there's going to be a significant impact. And if you leave the zoning the way it is at 3.3, you can't position houses around those saguaros. It's a very pristine piece of property, and if you live out in that area or you know that vicinity, there's going to be significant impact. The other impact I have a concern about with clustered housing, that's basically what they're proposing for these houses in a cluster, is the septic systems that are going to overload the soils in that area. And the issue for me is we have 3 water wells. A bunch of neighbors and myself, we have 3 water wells there. I think will be adversely impacted with those septic systems. So water quality is a concern of mine as well. So it's not just the flora and the fauna, but I think it's the health of myself, my family, my neighbors that are on water wells. So I would ask that maybe at least you take a look at this property, go walk it for yourselves. They have some of the biggest ocotillos, some of the biggest saguaros I've seen. They're huge. And just 2 weeks ago, I saw an entire herd of mule deer walking through that property. You see coyotes and javelina. The long-nosed bat uses those saguaros for their home. So it is a significant impact to the area. And I think the 3.3 acre minimums would be less of an impact if they could move around the local flora. So I pose or I ask that you take a look at this, at least drive by it, and maybe just step out of your car and walk the property for a minute to see what your thoughts are. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Alex, is it Byron?
Good morning, everybody. Thank you for your time in hearing me. My name is Alex Byron. I'm a resident on Sunset Road for over 6 years now. I'm also a home inspector in the area of Tucson, inspecting homes in all kinds of different neighborhoods here. And every time I come back home to my neighborhood on Sunset Road, I'm glad to be there because of the character of the neighborhood, because it's open space, peace and quiet, lots of desert and nature. It has a very unique character over there. And the proposal that is put before you right now, I would ask you respectfully to vote against it because it would violate the character and the spirit of the neighborhood there. I've spoken over the last several months to dozens and dozens of my neighbors in the entire area. 95% of the people said, I didn't hear about this proposal, and 100% of the people said, no, we don't want this to happen because we like living up here for a reason, because we don't want tract housing and subdivisions and that type of character in our neighborhood. People are very concerned about that, and so am I. So the proposal, while technically it might be playing by the rules, might be illegal to do, it's not the right thing to do. We all think it's wrong for the character and the spirit of the neighborhood, and the wildlife, and house values, everything will be impacted negatively by this proposal. There's absolutely nothing positive about this proposal. And for that reason, we ask you to please do the right thing and vote against this proposal. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Rebecca Dawson?
Good morning, Madam Chair and Supervisors. Thank you so much for hearing us today. Today is my birthday. Thank you. I turned 37 years old, and 37 years ago today, I lived on West Sunset Road, 602, as far west as you can get. It's been my home, the only home I've ever known. And I'm sorry, it's so emotional. But when I look at the studies and the plans, the demographics and the data that show what damage this is going to do to our home, to the animals that live there. It's devastating. I know that people can come up here and they can tell you that their opinions are that it's going to impact our property values, that it's going to impact the animal life, that it's going to create an eyesore. All of these things are opinions. What I want you to look at are the facts. The University of Arizona Department of Agriculture, George Zames, published an article on the human alterations of riparian habitats, demonstrated a history of this type of developmental process and the damage it does to the ecosystem. There is a riparian habitat there, and I understand that we are overdeveloping the Sunset Road area, a delicate area which has, right now is zoned for 4 acres of conservation for every 1 acre of building. That is being decimated, and over 19 acres is being overdeveloped. The way that this builder is complying, and I put that in quotes, with the regulations is to purchase riparian habitat elsewhere. To trade one animal sanctuary for another is inappropriate, in my humble opinion, and it also makes us feel that we may not see the damage that will happen until many years down the road. Quoted in this study demonstrates that in 1930s areas of California with riparian habitat, only 10% of their rainwater became floodwater. By the 1990s, with development, that was greater than 90%. As everyone here, I'm sure, is aware, that reduces the groundwater supply and eventually decreases the base flow. It increases erosion, destroying the riparian habitat, which is the habitat and the conduit for most of these animals, all of these terrestrial beings and their life forms. Also, by utilizing higher percentage of development, it will cause an invasion of non-indigenous plant species and alteration of vegetation, fish, and wildlife species. There are also greater than 100 homes currently in foreclosure in the 85743 and 85745 zip codes. And I would request that you guys seriously consider the fact that these homes are not needed. A doubling of the population in that area will cause increased decimation of our habitats, our people, and the potential for accidents. So I'll wrap up there. Thank you so much.
Thank you. And we've got some Kleenex.
Yeah, no, you're okay.
Happy birthday.
Maria Gaskill.
I'll get up close so my kids tell me I don't need one of these when I talk to them at home. But Madam Chairperson, with that, I don't have to reiterate what Rebecca just said. There truly is a lot of research if we go and look at it. I would like to comment on the representative from District 5 saying, I agree, I totally agree. The first thing I did when I actually first heard about this, which was one day prior to, I do not know if we call this the Planning Commission, the Planning Board, the Planning and Development. Numerous names have been given to all of these. So we neighbors actually are quite confused at what was actually this process. And by neighbors, I say, I wasn't within 1,000 feet of the development. Having said that, I will give Paul and Mr. Kai credit. They've gone through a lot. I agree with you for this development. However, at my age, referring to you, we would have said that this is actually trying to put a square peg in a round hole. I hear that 2 years ago, the board did go and review and do a complex readjustment, if you would, of how to go and be able to build and how to change from an SR to an SR2, which the actual SR2 is 1.66 acres at a minimum. That should have been on each lot size. Per the staff report that was completed March 31st, they too had problems with the undersizing of some of these lots. Hence, the cluster development was in fact going proposed. So I had to go and look up cluster development, and you do have a definition of cluster development on the website to go and look at. How numerous things had to be changed and had to be adapted to change this from 3.3 to a 1.66 SR2 zoning, now a cluster. So having said that, they've talked about the ecology and the water. I've read numerous times and hear about the detention basins. I still don't know, and that was asked at this Planning Development Board Commission of Paul. And at that point in time, again, we had to take, as you said, sir, at the end of this meeting, so a lot of times we have to take what you're telling us at face value. So where are these detention basins going to occur? And secondly, for your own planning, and Chairman Rodson, I did send an email with exactly this. I copied and pasted everything from. There will be impact. I too have walked the property along with Gino, who will come up along with Charlotte. Per the staff report, the potential loss of soils located in the buildable areas is 8%, 355 soils. Now, this was in relation to talking about the bat habitat. So I thought, I've got to walk this. I actually have to see where these are at. They are all within the majority, excuse me, the 80% of these soils are within the entrance and where you walk right off the road, which we anticipate from the plats that I saw will be the roads or where houses can access. Okay, they talk about the 3-to-1 ratio of transplants and that.
And I'm going to have to, your 3 minutes is expiring.
Anyway,
Just wrap up.
I will wrap up and I will say that what Charlie presented, he has pictures to go and show. These soils are not going to be replaced for money. So there are numerous impacts, numerous things that I didn't hear answered at the meeting with the planning. Yes.
Planning is, it's a planning and zoning commission.
Yes, it was, like I said, the names, depending on who you talk with, the name is going to do that.
Well, it is called officially the Planning and Zoning Commission.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Jason, is it found as? Okay.
Check my phone to make sure I wasn't overparked here and got a big ticket. Thank you, Chairman and Council. I'll just make these. I plead with you to vote no against this. All of my neighbors make great arguments. I agree with every single one of them. I would add safety in there as another one, as you guys are aware, or may not be aware. There was a woman killed on Sunset a couple years back, where they've actually had to shave that road down, and people still go by the speed limit out there. And this development will be, entrances to this development will be right at the bottom of the line here.
Actually, in the old plat, it's even worse.
Right, I understand, but doubling, more than doubling the number of houses here, just will make that much more difficult or dangerous. Mr. Elliott says that this is a better design or whatever. Well, you know, Dr. Chesson with Tucson Mountain Association would beg to differ. I mean, he's tried to work with these guys to find some sort of medium, but Dr. Chesson, in his conversations with me, flat out said, if my choice would be for it to stay exactly the way it is, to preserve the wildlife, to preserve the flora and fauna. So he, being an expert that he is with the university, I would kind of side with him over, you know, what's going to be.
I understand, and I'm not that bright, but I will tell you this. No, let's go. What I was going to say to you was my preference might be the same as his, but that's not the question that we're dealing with.
Right, and I'm sure these guys, I've met with Paul, I've talked with these guys, and they've jumped through a lot of hoops to be able to do what they're doing, but it still doesn't fit within the character of where we live out there, and I beg you to take that into consideration. I also became aware with my conversations with Mr. Paul that some of our conversation or correspondence with the supervisors is being proactively shared with them so that they can make counter arguments.
Everything you give us is a matter of public record, and it is it is traditional that the comments are shared with whoever's making the app.
Yeah, if they make a request, but for
normally
somebody to
they-
just forward our emails and correspondence to them.
Normally,
Right.
they get access to it from a.
I'm not saying they don't have access to
And they
it.
should, because you're expressing concern.
Right, and I agree.
And they need to be able to respond to that concern.
And I agree, it's just when it's proactively being shared, it kind of gives the appearance of collaboration, or the appearance that the gig is already up, that it's just an approved thing, that we're working with you to make sure that this
Normally, the
happens.
way we interact is,
Okay.
okay, here are there are some concerns, how are you going to respond?
I understand.
So,
Okay.
I mean, that's.
Well, I would hope that you would take all of our neighbors' concerns into consideration and vote no against us. Thank you.
I appreciate you coming. Amy Tripp? She couldn't stay. Carolyn Campbell?
Thank you, Madam Chair and members of the board. My name is Carolyn Campbell, and I'm with the Coalition for Sonoran Desert Protection. And we are here to talk about not the amount of houses, but the amount of habitat protected here, and hopefully responding to some of the comments that came before you in the process of talking about our support for this project. And we had many of the same concerns coming into this. As Supervisor Elias mentioned, there was a plat on this parcel, which didn't look very good, already approved, but also in going forward with the rezoning, the property owners need to comply with the Maine or Indiana Conservation Land System
Which they
guidelines.
wouldn't have had to have done with the plat.
Correct, if they did not go through a rezoning. And so, but even so, we were not supportive of this at the beginning. I think it's been over 2 years now that we have been working with the property owner and his representatives to move some of the development outside of the conservation land system, and to look at width of roads and really try to get all of the mitigation on site with the riparian and the special species management and the multiple use. We're really happy that these guys are going to be protecting all of the riparian areas that exist on site, all of the multiple use management area, but there are some, and I don't think we could have reached with these property owners, some without the flexibility of the offsite mitigation, which is where the special species management area mitigation comes in, which will have ownership of the hardy wash being consistent through that whole area west of Arthur Pack Park, and it's very good habitat. The last that I had seen was a wider corridor plan in the middle. It's not an important riparian area, but thanks, I believe, to the Tucson Mountains Association, they will be talking about that, if that's still the case, but that there will be a wider corridor through the middle, which actually helps with any connectivity to the south of that property.
To the connectivity to the Santa Cruz?
To the south.
Okay.
Yes, these are north-south, and then that
Okay,
important
gotcha.
riparian area as
Okay.
well. And the conditions, to respond to Mr. Shumway, I think it was, we are actually asking for additional conditions that were originally proposed by staff. They are now in your proposed standard and special conditions, and one of them is having a condition that is in excess of the native plant preservation ordinance because of the issues of the saguaros, and ensuring that they stay in place on site, or transplanted on site or stay in place. And then also in terms of the detention basin requirements, one of these is to continue to work with them until the subdivision plat to work on the retention detention issues on site. In any event, hopefully you can support
the additional, I'm a little confused. These are
Okay,
the
additions are
Is that 12 through
conditions
17?
12 through 17 I highlighted on my letter.
Okay.
And that is the Planning and Zoning Commission's recommendation. And I hope that you can, and I believe staff supports now, And if you could adopt this with those conditions, I think a lot of these issues which neighbors have brought up, Tucson Mountains Association have brought up, and the coalition certainly brought up, we'd like to see that. So not only is this a better development for Habitat from what we saw at first over 2 years ago, but also much better than the original plat. But thank you very much.
Thank you.
Madam Chair,
Supervisor.
I'd just like to say thank you to Ms. Campbell and say, in District 4, you've come out and made other projects more acceptable to the neighbors. Possible upzonings have only been possible and real because of that support that you lent. So thanks for your input today.
And then includes, I think one of the conditions, which was one of my concerns, trying to control the non-native plant species, the invasive non-native plant species, and there's quite a list of those if I'm reading this correctly. All right, thank you, Ms. Campbell. Then finally, John B.J. Jellin, how do I pronounce your last name? Jellin. Norwegian. Norwegian.
Madam Chairman, other members of the Board of Supervisors, and Mr. Huckleberry, thank you for allowing me to be here. I would just like to open up with the fact that I've lived here for 42 years, 8 years in Tucson on Reserve. And Tucson on Reserve is an HOA that's just across Sunset from the proposed area for rezoning. In fact, one of our main entry ways is the Sunset entry. It's a gorgeous piece of property. It's a huge area. And I think that I would like to throw my support in favor of keeping the status quo. And hats off to Carol, that was a wonderful letter. I agree fully with her 12 through 17 stated items that will help control and that the developer will have to adhere to make this all happen. I'm very concerned about the riparian area. It can be handled appropriately with absence of fences and with some rechanneling of some of the wash there, etc. And the fact that the flora and fauna, I think, will be preserved will be a real chief concern here. The traffic, I think if you look at the whole population of that area, the traffic is going to be a minuscule increase. You're talking about 22 homes versus 44, 45, you know, and that is a long, long street, Sunset. And it has some hills and it has some valleys, peaks and valleys. But I think that additional traffic will not be the kind that cannot be overcome with signage and better signage and just maybe better maintenance. So I think all those things in view, and I understand many of the concerns here, but I think we have to do what's best for the community. And what I think is right to do is to build a better, well-controlled, well-planned neighborhood with HOA approval and responsibilities of the HOA to guarantee that for all the people in our community on both sides of Sunset. I support that. Thank you for your, my time is up. Thank you for yours.
Thank you. I don't have any more speaker cards at this point, so I would ask the developer or whoever's representative, they would respond to some of the concerns and then and I need to know if you, okay, that's fine. The items mentioned by Ms. Campbell, items 12 through 17, do you concur with those?
Yes.
Proceed.
Thank you.
You can finish it.
It's warming up, yeah. Well,
Don't put your head under there because it's some kind of super X-ray that's render you brain dead.
Sure.
Oh, I'm blind.
Paul Lynn with WB Group 4444 East Broadway Boulevard, representing the property owners. Guys purchased this property probably about 1980, so they've owned it for 35, 36 years, something like that. A lot has changed over the years.
At one point, their plan was to develop it as SR lots. They actually went so far as to plat it at that time, but the market has not materialized. And with the conservation subdivision regulations that are in place right now that allow clustering of development.
Could I ask you to speak up just a little bit? Sure. For some reason, I'm not hearing you well or something. I don't know.
How's this?
That's fine.
All right.
Too close.
Anyway, we decided to proceed with repositioning of this property 2-3 years ago, 4 years ago, as a 1 acre cluster, which is why we came before this board at that point to change the comprehensive plan, and that was approved, of course. So I just wanted to take a minute and go through a couple of the things that were brought up and a couple of the high points that we have. First of all, in terms of where the property is and what typifies the vicinity, up here, is this up now?
Yeah.
Thank you. So on Sunset Road, here we are, and there are a lot of frequent 3 acre home sites around here. There are also quite a few 1 acre home sites here, and we're kind of splitting the difference with 45 homes on 78 acres. That's about 1.6, 1.7 homes per acre, which is in line with the comprehensive plan and kind of midway between some of the home sizes that you see out in this area. The existing plat protects about 35% of the site, which was the rule at that time. Okay. So what's shown in here in green is what's protected by the existing plat. And what we're proposing is sort of 2 levels. The first level is to greatly increase that no-build area so that on this map, everything that's in green, it becomes protected outright. And that includes this entire riparian area, this one here, which wasn't at all protected under the existing plat. In fact, there's a project entry at that location. And entirely protecting this restricted ridge here, this protected ridge. So that we're taking the conservation level, the no-build line, we're expanding it out, and we've worked with Carolyn's group on what areas to focus on here. We've widened and widened and widened this riparian area because that is the real trunk corridor here leading up to the Santa Cruz. Then beyond that, we're going to be self-imposing a 15,000 square foot no-build area on each lot, so that these are schematic, but they represent a quantity of disturbance on each lot. Each one of these will be positioned on the lot when the home comes in for development, and then everything outside of that 15,000 square feet will become open space as well. So the net effect is going from a protection of 35% of the site on the existing plat to a little over 70. So we're doubling the amount of open space that's protected, in addition to adding some critical protection in the more sensitive areas. This is the plan that was recommended for approval by P&Z. This is also the plan that was approved by the Cluster Development Review Committee. It shows some notable improvements of the existing plat. One of them I'll focus on. I won't belabor this, but in terms of traffic, the existing plat has 3 access points on Sunset. We've worked with DOT on the number and location of these. We've actually eliminated one. These will all be gated, whereas the existing plat does not show gates. We've also shifted this westernmost one here a little further west to get it closer to the peak there, which has the effect of increasing the visibility coming over that ridge there. So improvements to access onto Sunset, which from a transportation engineering standpoint, it's not a quantity issue. So these are safety improvements over the existing design. We've also, versus what, if you remember, was the site plan that was shown at the comp plan level, we showed a number of 1 acre homes along the project edges. What we've done here is actually brought the density transition on site and made these edge areas here and here a minimum of 3.3 acres. So those have the effect of developing under existing zoning, but with the extra restrictions in no-build. As was mentioned, Carolyn mentioned that we've been talking to Dr. Chesson, and his real focus is this central corridor, which, to orient you, is this one right here.
Which I think he thinks is the access to the Santa Cruz. That's what I keep.
He has insisted that that's a critically important wildlife corridor. Working with Carolyn and her group, I understand that this one this is the mapped riparian. This is the one that has connectivity to the Santa Cruz. But in the interest of making this more perforated for wildlife, we have gone back and looked at this, and we're actually able to pull these home sites down in the southern end out a little bit more and widen this out from what P&Z recommended, which was at a 40-foot gap. We widened that out to 100. And just for scale, this is a school bus here, so it's a 100-foot minimum, and of course it widens out on either end. This is what the plan ends up looking like. One thing that was brought up was septic. That was brought up very early. In fact, that was a concern that we heard at the comprehensive plan stage back 2-3 years ago. So we asked Westland Resources as a third party that has they do a lot of work for the various jurisdictions around here to tell us how we measure up to the rules and regs. Are we pushing the limits here or breaking them? And their answer was emphatically no, not at all. You're well under your what you're allowed to do in terms of density, distance to wells. We're well over that. I mean, this entire area is typified by septic tanks and wells. So what we're actually going to be doing is adding septic tanks, but not any wells. We're going to be connecting up to Tucson water. But anyway, this memo from Westland Resources, which staff has a copy of, this confirms that we're well within the allowable limits in terms of density. One other thing that this is just an interesting map. One of my staff guys made it in terms of just a comparison. What is disturbance on typical SR development versus what we're proposing, which is a cluster development, SR2 density. And what you end up with is a lot larger, more contiguous areas of open space compared to some of the surrounding areas. And that's just because we're able to impose those no-build limits and really restrict the areas that are protected. So with that, I would be happy to answer any questions.
Does the board have any questions of
Madam Chair,
Supervisor?
I understand that you've also got an agreement to provide access to those folks who have been using, for lack of a better term, bushwhack trails that exist on the property, so that people can continue walking across those without facing some kind of problem from new neighbors, rather, I should say. And that's a pretty normal thing with property that's been vacant for a long time. People start to use it for their own uses. And so I think that's an interesting kind of concession that he's in here as well.
Well, yeah, you're right, sir. I forgot to bring that up, but we've certainly recognized that this property has been used for hiking, also for equestrian uses. I think we actually had a number of admissions today that there was visiting of the property by neighbors. So what we're going to be doing is, as part of the plat, actually granting public trail easements for pedestrian and equestrian, non-motorized. That's a critical piece, but that will allow folks to continue to walk this ridge line and walk this wash too. And I failed to bring up one other thing that Carolyn mentioned, and that is the off-site property that we're proposing in an effort to achieve CLS compliance. And just real quickly, this is on Hardy Wash, north of the project. This is I-10 right here. The county already owns, I really don't know how well you can see it on here, but the county already owns the properties in red, which are this and this. The green is mapped important riparian area. The county doesn't own this, but in fact, this area was actually listed as a priority acquisition property in the bonds that didn't didn't work out. But at any rate, county's going to end up getting it anyway. So that's our offsite proposal, which I know Carolyn's group is, and county staff are also, they think this achieving connectivity of this important riparian area is certainly a bonus for the region.
Any questions?
Well, I appreciate your deference to Carolyn, but it's actually the Coalition for Sonoran Desert Protection that we're talking about.
You're absolutely right, exactly.
I love you, Carolyn.
No
I can just
questions?
I can never remember the whole name.
It's easier to remember, yeah, it's easier to say Carolyn, Coalition for Sonoran Desert Protection.
I know. It's just-
What's the pleasure of the board? There are no further speakers, no questions?
I'll go ahead and make a motion that we close the public hearing and approve item 22, case number C09-15-04, landmark title with the standard and special conditions approved by planning and zoning, which includes items 12 through 17 that are from the Coalition for Sonoran Desert Protection.
And that's a memo dated March 29th, 2016 from Senior Planner Janet Allen.
That's correct.
Second.
Madam Chair,
Supervisor.
I feel very bad about this because I understand what our speakers are talking about, and if it was my preference, believe me, this land would remain vacant. But that's not what is in front of us. And we have to try and do the best with the best science that we have available to us, and with some degree of cooperation for the interests of the county and land conservation on the whole. Consequently, have to acknowledge the offsite mitigation that exists on this. It's very important, as well as a developer who's been willing to work with. Frankly, something that I saw was very unworkable when we saw that comprehensive plan amendment almost 3 years ago now, 2.5 years ago. I was thinking, good Lord, I don't know if I want to even hear this case eventually, because it was going to be a problem. And it is a problem. So I recognize all of you, and I hear your voices, and believe me, it pains my heart. But with the acknowledgement of all of that, I also recognize the science that we've done, the value of the maybe Meehan Conservation Land System, and what it's done for all of us here in the county, and that sometimes it doesn't seem to always work in an individual's favor. But again, we need to protect the whole of the county and the whole of the concept of land conservation. And I think that's what this project does in the long run.
I would concur with your comments, and given the amount of open space we acquire with this plan versus the existing plant, plus the off-site mitigation, is what makes this palatable. And again, absent being able to buy the property and preserve it in its current condition, this is the best alternative we have. Any other comments from board members? All right, Supervisor Miller, are you with us? Okay. All right, are there any there's a motion on the floor for approval. Any objections? Hearing none, motion carries 4-0.
Madam Chair,
Supervisor.
I just would like to say to your client, John Ty, I wish him the very best in his continued recovery. It's a miracle that he's still alive after being shot earlier this year. Traumatic situation. I really want you, James, to pass on to your father and others that we care very much about. Mr. Kai, and we hope for his great leadership again, being in your group as well as in King County. Thank you for being in his absence. I wish him the very best.
All right, we move on to item 23. It's a hearing, zoning code text amendment, COA 1503, comprehensive plan terms and procedures, and ordinance number 2016-37. This is a hearing. Is there anyone in the audience that wants to address us on this item at this time? If not, what's the pleasure of the board?
Madam Chair,
Supervisor Elias.
I'm going to go ahead and move to close the public hearing and approve item 23, case number C08-15-03, and ordinance number 2016-37.
Second. Are there any discussion? Objections? Hearing none, motion carries. Moving on to the addendum agenda, Flood Control District Board, item 4. I'll move that item.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any objections? Hearing none, motion carries. Sitting as the Library District Board, item 5, Mr. Ward. I'll move the item. Motion and a second. Any objections? Hearing none, motion carries. Moving on to item 6, Supervisor Carroll.
Madam Chair, we're sitting in session at the Board of Supervisors, and I put this item 6 on regarding a public records request, and I'm sad that Supervisor Miller is not with us at this time. I don't know if this is the time when her staff can get a hold of her. We have her staff in the room. Supervisor Miller unavailable.
They lost it.
Can you speak into the microphone?
It said they had a power outage. It said the phone went dead.
Does she have a cell phone? Can we try to contact her, or should I just delay this item?
They did.
Madam Chair, that's an unusual thing. Let me say that on this item, we still have records that are being withheld by the staff of publications as well as the county administration. Rather than once again have a meeting where Supervisor Miller is not here to discuss her own case, being that she's the one in substantial non-compliance with a public records request from not just the Weekly or the Citizen, not just the Weekly or the Sentinel, but also the Arizona Daily Star, I think we're incurring liability for taxpayers as long as this is delayed. It's been several Fridays since there was a claim at this dais by the supervisor that she would release all the documents requested, which according to the legal opinion of our county as well as the media outlets has not been done. I'd like to go ahead and request that we delay this until Supervisor Miller is in the meeting, number one. And if she has to leave early, please let us know so we can rearrange the agenda in the August meeting so we can hear the item while she's here in the room. We could ask questions like, when will there be compliance if it still isn't done? I'm concerned about this, and maybe we've got a connection. Does that sound?
Hello?
There you go, Supervisor Miller's back. The electricity came back on. Fabulous. Chairman, I'll turn it over to the chair. Thank you.
Supervisor Carroll, you put this item on the agenda. If I understand, your concern is the possible liability that the county is looking at as a result of non-compliance with the request from the Arizona Daily Star, Tucson Sentinel, and Tucson Weekly. And I think we had asked, the clerk of the board was looking at those records and where we stand at this point on those on that request in terms of being responsive to the press and their requests for public records.
Madam Chair, board members, I believe that everything has been distributed back out to the press. We've received a clarification from one of the press members on the response, and that is where we're working right now. But everything that we've received to date has been distributed out.
Madam Chair?
Supervisor Miller.
We have responded to all public records requests effective as of June 30th. We have responded to them all fully and completely. And Mr. Carroll is clearly going way beyond a simple presentation of factual information as we did in the last board meeting. He is presenting a biased point of view. This is clearly an attack on me personally and professionally in a coordinated attempt to influence the outcome of an election. It is no coincidence that in the last meeting, reporters knew there was an item on the agenda before I did, before we even received the addendum. I was informed by a member of the press that there was an item on the agenda. I found it very curious. We hadn't even received the addendum at that point. So people know exactly what is going on here. I will state clearly and unequivocally that we have fully complied with all public records requests as of June 30th.
Thank you, Supervisor Miller.
Madam Chair,
Supervisor Carroll.
I deny there's any collusion with myself and the media. Obviously, I don't set the agenda, nor did I set the last agenda. But Madam Chair, my question is, again, it's regarding responses to public records requests. There is not compliance currently from all board members. I know that we in my office have promptly and immediately, I say as soon as possibly that we could do it, have complied with a recent Freedom of Information Act request from a media outlet in town. It's all done, it's packaged and delivered. The update on the backups, I'd like to ask Mr. Weaver. Mr. Weaver, if there is non-compliance that can be proved, are we incurring liability for the taxpayers in this situation with one supervisor not providing all...
Madam Chair, as I stated earlier, we have fully and completely complied with every public records request as of June 30th.
Thank you, Supervisor Miller. Mr. Weaver.
Madam Chair, Supervisor Carroll, the matter right now probably rests mostly in the hands of the requesters. If they're not happy with what they received or they believe that there's stuff that they haven't gotten, there's a statute which allows them to file a legal action and have this reviewed by a judge. A judge will decide whether or not compliance has occurred. And there are certain sanctions that can be imposed as a result of that, such as attorney fees to the prevailing party, damages to the prevailing party. So if there has been non-compliance, there is potential liability for the county. But at this point, we're at an impasse, and it's really in the hands of the requesters.
Thank you.
Madam Chair.
Supervisor.
I just comment that that's a pretty strong statement from council in the midst of a board meeting. So what I would like to ask for is a written opinion based on that too, so that we have a clearer understanding of what our liability is in this matter. And I don't think that reflects on any one particular public records request, but I think it's a smart thing for us to understand, given all the hoopla and all the discussion surrounding this particular series of events. But I think it would be best for all if you could provide that in writing to us, Mr. Weaver. And thank you. And frankly, I think we ought to take a look at making it public right now.
All right. Supervisor Valadez.
Madam Chair, right now I've heard two different sides of this issue. Is there anyone here besides on this dais or on the phone who can tell me whether or not this public records request has been complied with or not?
Mr. Valadez, Madam Chair.
Madam Chair, I believe I asked someone other than board member.
Supervisor Miller.
Madam Chair, I will state yet again, we have fully and completely complied with all public records requests as of June 30th. Unless there's something that has been sent in the last few days that I'm not aware of. But as of June 30th, we have replied and completely and fully to all public records requests. And if Mr. Carroll keeps the accusations alive, I'd like him to present proof right now. How about it, Supervisor Carroll? Do you have proof?
Madam Chair, I believe I still have the floor.
Yes, you do.
Madam Chair, okay, so we're having a theoretical discussion. I can accept that, but I need an answer to a theoretical question. The issue that I'm trying to process in my mind right now is the last board meeting we took an official position as a county and as a board. Mr. Carroll, again, in a theoretical discussion that we're having right now, it says he's concerned about potential financial liability or legal liability to this county. But if this board and this county took an official position and there would theoretically be a finding against that, Mr. Weaver, because we took a position and that would not be in compliance with that position, and we made that very clear, whose financial and legal liability would it be?
Madam Chair, Supervisor Valdez, I have to look into that more deeply, and it would depend a lot on the action that's filed and how it's filed. But I think ultimately it's still the liability of the board, because it would be one supervisor acting in their official capacity, and we've had those situations before.
Madam Chair, Mr. Weaver, the motion was very, very clear that if theoretically there was an action that violated the intent of this board and the official position of this county, that person was no longer acting in their official capacity. So how is it that we've still retained legal responsibility and liability?
I don't know that you have any legal responsibility or liability. I mean, it would depend on the action that's filed, who it's filed against, and what the allegations are. But, you know, Supervisor Miller is an elected official. She's acting in her official capacity, and generally speaking, she's covered by the county for any legal fees associated with that or liability associated with that, as long as she's in the course and scope of her duties. And what we have now is an apparent disagreement among board members about the status of this case. And I'm not in a position to say one way or another factually what the truth is.
I'm not really concerned about that disagreement amongst board members. I'm concerned about financial and legal liability, period, in a theoretical discussion, particularly based on the fact that we took a very clear position as a board and as a county. So the disagreement, I don't care about. My question, I mean, the real issue, and maybe I need to do a little more research, but I mean, we took a very, very, very clear position as a board. We instructed the county attorney about the official position of this board. And if someone is violating that position, theoretically again, how is it we retain, I just don't get how we retain that liability if we've taken a position contrary to such actions theoretically. So if we could analyze that train of thought in the written opinion that Supervisor Elias has talked about, we'd really appreciate that as well. We give you a little more time than other, it's fine.
Yes, sir.
Madam Chair.
Supervisor Carroll.
Madam Chair, truly I appreciate the input from other board members, and this is, again, it's about incurring liability for the taxpayers. That's what we need a written
Madam Chair?
legal opinion from
Supervisor
Mr.
Carroll
Weaver
has the floor.
about. If the liability goes to the individual board member who's in a dispute with the media, that's up to, I thought, the position that we voted on at the last meeting to be, I guess, defined. But I will look forward to a legal opinion in writing from Mr. Weaver about this. I obviously have a list of questions that I'd like to also submit, but at this point I think it's important that public records are responded to promptly and immediately, as my office has done, and I'm still concerned about other offices not doing so. That's for the record. Thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor Miller.
Madam Chair, the fact that I am responding in my official capacity seems clear, and it was public records, not private records. And as a result of that, I believe I should be represented by the county attorney and the board in my official capacity. However, I will wait to hear what the county attorney has to say on that. But we have complied fully and completely, and no one has produced anything that states otherwise. I'm tired of the allegations. If you have something, let's put it out there. Last time you were waving, Supervisor Carroll was waving around a document which wasn't even submitted as background material, but I found out later it was a document that he was waving around accusing me of not turning over that had in fact been turned over. So on these allegations, it is really clear what's going on here, and continue your campaigning against me professionally and personally. And without any evidence, I question your motivations. I'm done.
Thank you, Supervisor Miller. Supervisor Elias.
Thank you, Madam Chair. We have some members of the press that are here that ultimately have sent in those very public records requests that we're questioning. Can I ask you, without holding you to any kind of binding answer, given the circumstance that you're in, do you feel that as of June 30, your public records requests have been responded to correctly?
I do not.
Please speak into the microphone when you do that, gentlemen, and identify yourself if you would, just to be kind to me.
Joe Ferguson with the Arizona.
No, you gotta press the magic button there, Joe.
Joe Ferguson, Arizona Daily Star. At this time, the Daily Star does not believe Ally Miller has fully complied with our request for emails conducted over private emails regarding public business.
Thank you.
Dylan Smith, TucsonSentinel.com. It's our assessment, based on the evidence that we have been given and testimony and interviews we've done, that Supervisor Miller and her employees have not complied with our public records requests, especially regarding public business done on private email accounts, Facebook messages, and other messaging systems.
Thank you, I appreciate that. See, that's why I think it's important that we get that legal opinion from you, Mr. Weaver, because we are facing some serious problems here. Whether or not we're, you know, the thing is, it was about Miss Miller and whether she gets reelected. The truth is that our taxpayers are on the hook for this, and Pima County's reputation is on the hook for this. And that I do take.
As is my reputation, Supervisor Elias.
I understand that, Ally, but there are larger considerations, frankly.
There are larger considerations. I have testified here that I have turned over everything.
All right, I don't
And
think
I resent the allegations without any evidence. No one has produced an ounce of evidence proving otherwise. And unless you have that, I know exactly what's going on here, so does the public.
I think that we are all out of order on this at this point. Supervisor, to the point, but then we're going to conclude this.
Madam Chair, we have for the public, we have for the record heard Supervisor Miller say that she's in full compliance. We've heard the press say that she's not, and that's between them, obviously. I'm concerned about the taxpayer, and that's my issue with the public records request or any Freedom of Information Act request that comes across my desk or any of the rest of the board members or the administrators of this dais. I believe Supervisor Miller is distorting this situation, that I held up a piece of paper.
Madam Chair, point of order.
That proved what I was saying.
We let him go out of control in the last board meeting.
You're both out of control.
Madam
Then
Chair.
please, end it.
Please, stop.
Madam Chair, I will look forward to this being reviewed again at the next board meeting in August. I'll put it on the agenda again, and we'll see what the county attorney's written opinion of the situation is, as well as the clerk's update, and as I'm sure the media by then. Supervisor Miller and I will leave this at that point, but I stand by what I held up, what I said at this dais. Thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor Carroll. Let's move on to the rest of the agenda. We have already dealt with item 7. Item 8 is economic development and tourism, and then we have, well, how about, is there anyone that wants to divide the question? We have items 8 through 20. Is there anyone who wants to divide the question? If not, I entertain a motion. To move those items, I will second. There's a motion and a second. Is there any discussion, any objections? Hearing none, motion carries. That brings us to the end of today's meeting. If there are no objections, this meeting stands adjourned.